good news that we have recently got subclass 858 visa approved under the ICT section industry, basically. So for the applicant who had completed a research degree. So the good news for our client, and obviously our client is quite happy with it. Now today we are going to talk about the state nomination programs. If you have any questions, you can always put it in the comment box and I can answer those questions for you today. Don't waste your time. Basically, feel free to ask any questions about the migration programs. Recently, I'm just going to cover up a quick explanation on the Queensland nomination openings and as well as the announcement from New South Wales that has recently came up. So NSW government has announced that the regional area will announce their occupation list for a regional nomination in early February 2021. So until then, the criteria is still the same, that you either have to have a job offer in your field for at least 12 months, and the job offer must be in your nominated occupation, and the job offer has to be at least for 35 hours per week or more. And it has to be in the specific region where your occupation is open. You cannot access the the region which is or the occupation list for different region. So you have to make sure that you are assessing the same region or referring to the same region when you're applying for a state nomination. So if, for example, a person who's got a job offer in Wollongong, but his or her occupation is open in Newcastle, they cannot apply in Newcastle based on the job offer in the Wollongong. So you have to make sure that you meet the criteria for the state nomination. Regarding the Queensland government announcement, BSMQ has announced that they will start nominating people for the subclass 132 and 188 and 888. So these are the business visas basically. But skilled migration program for business, for Queensland is still suspended, and they will still, obviously they'll start as soon as they they receive an allocation from the government. But for now, most of the state nomination program is still closed for a skilled migration. However, there are alternative ways, as I mentioned, that you can always look into. And while just with this live session, when I started it, I've just received an email from one of our clients, that they have received a nomination approved for an accountant for a subclass 482 visa, which is really good as well. So I've just got an email, which is, I'm sure that my client will be very happy after listening to this news as well. So yes, so you can also look into the applying for a state nomination program under, let's say, any of the states, as well as you can also look into a global talent independent program. You can also look into employer sponsorship if you've been working in the field, and you can also consider applying for a subclass 494 if you have been living and working in a regional area, or if you have not been living and working in a regional area, but you have been living and working in your field in, let's say, outside the regional area, but you have a prospective employer who may agree to sponsor you. You can also apply for a 494 visa. This is really good for the people who do not qualify for a 482. So basically, they do qualify for 482 visa, but then they do not qualify for a 482 to 186 TRT stream because their occupation is on a short-term list. So you can always work around your ways, and there are 160,000 visas allocated this year, which is not really bad. So I'll start taking the questions now. So I've got the first question from Sundarjot. So the question is, any chance for a 190 as a chef with 70 points in South Australia? When will SOL for South Australia release? Sundarjot, thank you very much for joining us today. Yes, so South Australia and pretty much most of the state, not only South Australia, they have just recently received a confirmation from the department that they will receive their allocation, or they may have already received their allocations as well, but most of the state, because of Christmas, probably will start in early 2021. So I believe that the chef is a very critical occupation for hospitality industry, and I'm sure that this occupation is likely to stay on the list for South Australia, but I can't say that whether it's going to be for 190 or 491, but I hope that it will be for 190 as well. So for South Australia, if you are living outside Adelaide, which is regional South Australia, so they consider those applicants on a priority basis compared to the people who are living and working in their field in Adelaide city. Now the next question that we have is from Abhishek. Hi Abhishek. So Abhishek's question is 190 working since sorry Abhishek, I've just lost you there. So 190 working since 1 year, assessed by Engineers Australia. I have 95 points plus 5 points for state electrical engineer. I'm sure, Abhishek, yes, your profile is really good, and I'm sure that you have a very high possibilities of obtaining a state nomination. But again, as I mentioned, that you have to wait for a state nomination to be announced, or the criteria to be announced for a state nomination, whether your occupation is on the list or not. If it is on the list, I'm sure your profile is one of the good ones, because 95 points is not everybody has the 95 points. And if I check the occupation for the state nomination, let's say, or your EOIs in 95 points, I can check in a minute and let you know. But so I think the number of EOIs in electrical engineering for 95 points would be really, really low. I'm just checking while talking to you guys as well. So for 190 and for 189 as well. So I'm sure that the number of EOIs would be really low for this occupation. And your chances of getting an invite is quite positive. But it really depends on whether NSW will keep your occupation on the list. Now, at 95 points in 189, Abhishek, there are only less than 20 EOIs in the queue. So you can imagine that your chances of getting an invite is quite high. And again, the same thing for a subclass 190 as well. Overall, less than 20 EOIs in 190 as well. So I'm sure that your profile has a better chances of getting an invitation if the state nomination opens up for electrical engineer. But if not, in the meantime, you can start looking at another option, which is moving to another state. Let's say, for example, trying for a state nomination with, you know, uh, with other states where your occupation is open once the state nomination list is announced. Now, the next question that we have is from Pritham Shrestha. So Pritham's question is, hi Pritham, when does NSW start giving 190 for trade occupations in 90 points? Again, if you have 90 points in a trade occupation, I would say yes, you have good chances, but NSW for now just have indicated that they will be inviting occupations which are on the priority list, which are 18 occupations that the priority migration occupation list announced by the Department of Home Affairs. So I hope that trade comes up on the list as well, but we don't really know until the NSW announces the new list, if they are going to announce a new list for this financial year. If not, then obviously, Pritham, you can always look into other states like South Australia or regional New South Wales, where you can either secure 491 for regional New South Wales, or going to South Australia and working in a nominated occupation and securing 190 or 491, depending on their list as well. Um, Abhishek's question is, can I expect an invitation in a month or two? Abhishek, is really hard to say whether you will get an invitation in 1 month or two, because the department, like today is 11th of December, right? So there was supposed to be an invitation round according to the normal processing every month that they conduct invitation round, right? At 11th of each month. So there has not been any invite in this in this month as well, on today itself. So I don't think, until the department starts inviting, I can't say that it's going to be within a month or so. But I'm really hopeful for this kind of cases. No? So I would not really be, uh, thinking that I wouldn't say your case is bad, basically. Now the next question is from Anshul. So hi Anshul, what's the status of TR extension in regional areas? So Anshul, if you have studied in a regional area, yes, you will be able to apply for an extension, but obviously we still are waiting for legislation to come into effect, so that then you can apply for the extension for a 485 visa. Uh, Hi, Jamin. Jamin's question. So Jamin saying, hi, just confused on my submitted EOI during 29th of September to 5th of October, 5th of October in Queensland. My 3 months experience was completing on 5th of October itself, but I did submit the EOI on 31st of September. Would that still be considered if they do pick? Jamin, I think it's at the time of application criteria. So your EOI has to be submitted, but yes, it really depends on, again, because they have not announced the new criteria for a Queensland state nomination, whether they will be. But if your occupation is in the critical list, there are likely chances that yes, they might accept your application, because generally right now all the all the critical care occupations are considered, comparatively easier for a nomination. So yes, we can be hopeful, but I wouldn't say it's a black and white answer. The next question is from Soburu Gusu. So, any chances for agriculture consultant in South Australia for 491? I believe that yes, South Australia has a history of having a broad list of occupations for a state nomination. So their occupation list is quite broad, quite long, and they have always allocated numbers for each occupation. So generally, there might be less allocations for agriculture consultant, if but generally they always have allocations for the uh, for the state nomination for surplus 190 and 491. And while 491, because South Australia entire region is regional, I'm sure that they should have a longer list for the state nomination. Next question is from Iranda. Hi, Iranda. So the question is when the Queensland will announce the new migration rules. Uh, Iranda, the new migration rules will be announced most likely in early next year itself. Most of the states will announce their new criteria in early 2021. And I'm just on the website right now for the Queensland, and the text reads there that the BSMQ program remains suspended while the backlog of applicants from 29th of September to 5th of October interim quota opening are processed. So they're still in the process. That means they're still in the process of completing the backlog of the interim program that they started between 29th of September to 5th of October. Pretty much, I think, and they have mentioned that a new EOI will need to be launched when the skill program reopens at the end of January 2021, which indicates that they will start the state nomination program again in early end of 2021, January 2021, or early February 2021. So I'm sure that that you can expect somewhere in early February 2021 to be safe. The next question is from Gandu Newpin. So when are the international borders going to open for an international students? It's very hard to say, honestly, because it really depends on how quick the vaccination can go, how effective it is, and also the government's measures on the health. But recent announcement from many states and many from the government as well that they will start taking a small chunk of students from overseas who are stuck overseas. So I'm hoping that the borders will open up for certain people at certain universities or certain locations, studying at certain locations, basically, to come into Australia and start studying their course here. The next question is from Imran Ali. What about a registered nurse in NSW, South Australia, Victoria, nomination criteria? I have 70 points at the moment. Mr. Imran, I would highly recommend that, yes, South Australia would be a good option. Victoria would be also a good option because their state nomination criteria is very clear. For South Australia, is minimum 3 months and maximum 12 months. Preferred criteria is 12 months, basically, for working in your nominated occupation, and that too outside regional, so outside Adelaide, basically. And in Victoria, you can expect the state nomination program to reopen in early January or February 2021. And the criteria is it's very simple. If you're in critical care, which is nursing is, you just have to be working in your nominated occupation for 6 months. So these are the options for nurses. And I'm sure that, considering the pandemic situation, the government will really focus on the healthcare occupations much more than other occupations. So you can be at least relaxed that one or the other way you will have your state nomination at least. So I can't say 100%, but yes, the likely chances are very high. Mr. Ram, how are you? The question from Mr. Ram Dahal is when will probably be announcement of a 491 Victoria, please? So I think, Mr. Ram, the announcement for 491 Victoria would be somewhere in early or Jan or end of Jan or February 2021. But as most of the states have indicated that they will start in February, so to be safe, I would just say that yes, to be safe, that should start in February sometime. The next question is from Miranda. Hi Miranda again. So when is Queensland will announce new migration rule? As I said, they have clearly mentioned on the website that the announcement will occur somewhere in end of January 2021 or early February 2021. So uh, I'm sure that that you can be hopeful that this announcement will come up soon. The next question is from Swati. What about enroll nurse in Adelaide? Swati, we recently had, I think 2 weeks ago, we had around 10 invitations for enroll nurse from South Australia. So I am very positive that yes, you should lodge your EOI now for South Australia state nomination, because they are still considering the the occupation list, or let's say at least at least the critical list or critical care workers for a state nomination right now as well. So I would say yes, you still can say that your chances are quite high. You should lodge an EOI for that. The next question is from Manohar. Hi Manohar, what about 190 visa in Victoria for engineering technologist? As you know that Victoria had an option to apply for an engineering technologist for 190 if you had a job offer only prior to the pandemic. But now we have to wait and see whether your occupation is on the list first thing. But mechanical engineer is on a priority list from the department. So I'm hoping that some of the engineering occupation will still remain on the priority list for most of the states. So if they do have that occupation on the list, then yes, again, but the criteria has now changed unless they change it again, which is at the moment the Victoria state nomination criteria is that you have to work 6 months full time in your nominated occupation. The next question is from Nimraj. So, hi Nimraj. For 190, sorry, I'm getting too many questions, so just lost you there. Let me just go back to your question. Uh, Sorry, Nimraj, I've just lost your question there. Can you please put in your question again? The next question is from Sharut Sharma. How about Diploma of Community Services from Accredited College in Perth? Which would be the best visa to apply on 190 or 491? What is the minimum points required on this occupation to apply? So if you are able to obtain a positive skills assessment using this diploma in community services, then we'll have to look into this occupation honestly, because this is not a very common occupation that we have come across very often. So I always have to go back and check the criteria, but for skills assessment. But because if you have studied in in Western Australia, Australia's state nomination program is very clear that if you have studied there 2 years, then you can lodge an expression of interest, which is using the skill select EOI, and wait for the invitation from Western Australian government. And if you again, they have an occupation list. It's two separate one. One is for the people who have completed the study there, which is quite broad, and the other one is for the people who are outside of Western Australia but can move to Western Australia now. So the Western Australian graduate list is quite long. So I'm sure that they would have and they should have this occupation in the list, because again, it's a community services which is part of a healthcare in a way, or let's say it's part of the the uh, care systems in Australia. So I would hope that yes, your chances of getting the invite from them could be better. Now, the next question is from Mr. Gus. So, hi dear, how about applicants who have submitted the 491 file in June and waiting for the invitation? System administrator, when can I expect? Also barred section 48. So, Mr. Gus, I'm not sure which state nomination have you applied for, but if you have only lodged an EOI, I assume that you have to wait because, but if you have applied for a New South Wales state nomination, New South Wales, as I mentioned earlier, that they have just recently got a location, and I'm sure that if your application has not been rejected so far, that means it's, that's a positive sign basically. So because the chances of you getting a nomination from them can be a bit higher, because if we have seen that people who are not likely to get a nomination have already been refused. We have received a lot of people have received a nomination refusal for New South Wales, especially accountants actually, who applied during the June 2020, but now got a rejection based because the allocation is quite low and the state cannot invite those people. But even if you're barred under Section 48, traveling outside Australia is still permitted. So I don't see any issue in you being able to travel outside Australia. The next question is from Mr. Mohammed Metwali, software engineer with 90 points, including 5 points from state nomination without experience, onshore 190 New South Wales. Mr. Mohammed, honestly, your points are not really great points. If you were just 5 points above, yes, your chances could be higher. But because your occupation is on this priority list, you can still have a certain hope for an invitation if the department just invites, or even if NSW just invites this occupation, because then, but honestly, the number of EOIs in software engineering at at the points that you mentioned, which is for 190 software engineer. I'm just checking it right now. The EOI for 190 at 90 points is 1834 EOIs. You can imagine you're competing with a huge number of people, and many of these people might have the work experience in the field. So I would say you should start working on increasing your points or looking to Canberra state nomination, because you can move to Canberra and try for a Canberra matrix because your occupation is open there. The next question is uh, from Nikita Sharma. So Nikita's question is, when can we expect the ACT occupation list to be released? Not talking about the current critical list. So Nikita, actually, ACT has not indicated any changes, upcoming changes in their current occupation list. So I'm assuming that they would keep the same occupation list until further notice. But if they announce it, then only we can comment on it. I don't think they have any indication, or they have provided any indication of changing the occupation list for now. Uh, Next question is from Sunny Kumar. Hi, Sunny. Any idea when the NSW will start inviting skilled 194 developer programmer? As I mentioned, Sunny, NSW has indicated that they will probably start inviting in early 2021. So yes, but it really depends on how many points you have now. If you have 90 only, including state 5 points, your chances are not really great. Even at 95 points in software engineering or a developer programmer, let's say, there are 820 EOIs, which is also, according to me, is a huge competition. So now I would say if you want to increase your chances, you got to reach 100 points, which is like, that means you have to have 95 points without the state's points for you to be at a good points to get an invitation. But if you're a software engineer or if you're in IT, and if you can demonstrate that you can earn 153,600 or more, try to see if you can qualify for a global talent development program, or if you have a master's degree which has more than 80% of grades in your master's, you can also try for that as well. But your case is assessed on case by case basis when it comes to a global talent independent program, depending on the factors of your grades, your ability to find an employment, or if you have a job offer already, your chances are completely higher. The next question is from Vivek. Hi, Vivek. What about subclass 189 visa grant? Is Department of Immigration looking at 189 backlog cases? Because as of December, there is a backlog of more than 3,500 cases, most of which are aged 18 months and above. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. So yes, we have recently seen actually visas being granted actually, and honestly, we have seen many visas being granted lately. So I'm really hopeful that yes, but at the same time, yes, people are waiting, but it really depends on the occupation as well. So like I've seen that accounting occupations are taking longer, for example, to get visa outcomes, but other occupations are receiving outcomes quickly. The next question is from um, Norbert. So Norbert, hi Norbert, any chances for South Australia 491 family stream with 95 points for other skilled occupation, aeronautical engineer, including family points? Norbert, I think South Australia has not indicated anything for now for a family sponsorship. So chain migration program hasn't been, there is no indication of the chain migration program anymore from South Australia. So unfortunately, you'll have to wait for South Australia to announce their nomination criteria. It would be wrong if I comment on it right now, honestly, without knowing anything on it. But yes, if you have good amount of points, you can also expect an invitation for a 491 directly from Immigration Department as well, if under the family sponsorship stream. Next question is from Manohar. Magar, what about 190 visa IDC requirement in Victoria for engineering technologies? Manohar, I've just covered that question before as well, that Victoria had that criteria before, that if you have a job offer in your nominated occupation, we can, you can apply just with a job offer. But now that the criteria has changed, at the moment the criteria is that you have to work 6 months and then lodge an EOI and then lodge another expression of interest with Victoria, which is the interest to be nominated by Victoria. So honestly, it really depends on whether your occupation is on the list or not. Now, the list probably should be announced in early 2021. Pritham Shrestha. Hi, Pritham. What about about 95 points in 189 and 189 and 100 points in 190 for trade occupation? Pritham, chances are super good as long as your occupation is on the list. Next question is from Anupia. Hi, Anupia. Any chances for civil engineer in Victoria? Currently working in nominated occupation. Occupation is civil engineer, 90 points for 190 and 85 points in 109 direct. Date of effect is November 2019. Anupia, honestly, the occupation list has not been announced, so it's very hard to tell you. But if you're working in a nominated occupation, you can always look into 482 and 186. We recently had a very good successful cases especially for a civil engineer, getting a 186 visa direct entry stream because that person had total 3 years of experience. Also, we have got certain 482 visas with just 2 years of experience. So you can always look into those options as well if your employer is agreeing to sponsor and if they're not able to find any suitable candidate to fill this position. Now, next question is from Bimal Rijal. Hi, Bimal. What about the Tasmania when they will start giving nomination for 491? Bimal, honestly, if you see, Tasmania has recently announced that if you're working in hospitality industry such as cook and chef, you can still apply. And we have seen recently people getting an invitation under if they're working. So their occupation, nominated occupation, was an accountant, but the person was working in cook. They got a nomination, so the nomination program is still open, but they have run out of the nomination places. So you can still lodge the application, but things will take time to get back to normal. Right? So the next question is from Gas Macon. Hi guys. So question from guys is, can we fly to New Zealand and come back to Australia on a temporary visa? And how long will it take to get a New Zealand visa? NSW is inviting applicants barred with Section 48, or they still put in the applications on hold. So Mr. Gas, Mr. or Miss Gas, I'm not sure. Sorry, I can't make it out from your name. So I can't really advise on New Zealand visas because we don't process the New Zealand visas from Australia. I can only advise you on the Australian visa because I'm not registered agent for New Zealand as well. So NSW is inviting people, doesn't matter whether you have Section 48 bar or not, because you can always travel outside Australia and lodge the application, because the only thing is you can't come back unless you travel to countries like where the borders are open and the government is allowing people to travel from certain countries like New Zealand. But you can always ask them to put on your application on hold if you do not wish to travel outside Australia. And some people do not want to take the risk, so they do sometimes ask us that, okay, can we please ask NSW to put my application on hold after they get invited and they lodge an application with NSW. So yes, they do keep the application on hold. The next question is from Harish. Hi Harish. Sorry Harish, I've just lost you there. I'm sorry, the question will come back again. So the next question is from Kurela Vivek. When can we expect to know about Victoria 491 criteria? As I mentioned earlier as well, Kurela Vivek, that the expected time is early January or February 2021. Nimrat, hi Nimrat. The question from Nimrat is, I'm an RN. Is it necessary to have current employment? How many chances with 85 points? Nimrat, if it is for New South Wales, the chances for state nomination with 85 points is very hard to tell you at the moment because we have no data to compare, because since September, NSW has not really invited anybody at all. So we haven't seen any invite, honestly. So according to my knowledge, there has not been any single invite since September, when they invited a lot of applicants, but then after that, there has not been any invite. So it's very hard to tell you whether 85 points will be good enough or not. But even if we have 1 or 2 rounds, then we can easily predict based on the previous data. So generally the prediction works like this, that we have a previous data from our database because we have a huge client database, and we have really saved like a high number of invites when the invitations are normal. So we compare our data and then predict what's the likely chances, or if there is anything that you should do to change this, change something to change in your case to make it better. The next question is from Sheikh Nayan. What about 190 in Cooks? Is there any chances to get invitation? Again, Sheikh, it's very hard to tell you because the occupation list is not out. But again, as I mentioned earlier as well, that hospitality industry has been highly affected because of COVID. And as we can see, like let's say initiative from Tasmanian government that they are inviting people who are working in hospital industry to get it back on track. So, you can still be hopeful, but I would always recommend that as soon as, wait for a month. It's not, I think, month or so, and see how it goes. And if not, then you should also look into job offer in regional news outlets, for example, for 491, or if some other state announces the state admission criteria, then you can also look into those states as well. So Ronit says you're gonna get it, bro. Don't worry. So yes, that's a positive attitude, guys. Definitely, we have to be positive, and I think with a positive attitude, you will be able to get through one or the other way. I'm sure because there's not only 189 option, right? There's a 190, there's a 491, there's a 482, there's a 186 or 494. So you can always look into different options if one is not working for you. The next question is from Vishal Viru Patel. So Vishal's question is system and network engineer, 95 points on 190 in NSW. What are the chances? So Viru Patel, actually, let me see what's the what's the number of occupation or number of EOIs for 190 in computer network and systems engineer at the moment. For subclass 190 at 95 points, there are 300 plus EOIs. So it's a big competition, honestly. It's a tough competition, but if you do have work experience, again, as I said, I would recommend looking into a state nomination program, the employer sponsorship program as well. Because I'm sure that if you have 95 points, you might have the work experience in your field. The next question is from Rajesh Shah. Hi, Rajesh. Any chances for telecom engineer? Rajesh has 80 plus 5 points from NSW since February. Honestly, Rajesh, I really don't want to give you a wrong hope, but I think you got to work harder to increase your points because 80 plus 5 is really, as of now, it's a very competitive situation that you're in. You should look into either increasing your points or moving to a regional area or looking into another state nomination program as soon as we see a new list from the states. Muhammad Ali, hi, Mr. Muhammad. I have 90 points for 189 motor mechanic and 95 points for 190 working in Sydney. Need your advice, confused, and what should I do? Keep working in Sydney or should move to regional? See, you can't keep working in Sydney, but at the same time, keep an eye on a state nomination program for the 491. As NSW has announced that if you have a job offer as well for 12 months, they will nominate you. So, I would say yes, continue working. And if you're a motor mechanic, you already have, I'm assuming that you have at least 1 year of experience. And if you're working in Sydney, you can also ask your company to sponsor you for 42 if you have 2 years of work experience. And if you have more than 3 years of full-time work experience, or at least 3 years of full-time work experience, you can always apply for 186 direct nutrition, and it's the easy pathway for you compared to 189 and 190. But yes, if your case is really good, because I can see that, I haven't really seen many people with motor mechanic and have this many points. Like for a motor mechanic at the moment, let's say in motor mechanic general, if you talk about 90 points, there are less than 20 EOIs at the moment. So you can imagine that there's no competition technically as long as the government starts inviting motor mechanics. And I'm sure that you have a very high chances. You can, if your company is not happy to sponsor, don't worry. I think next 3 to 6 months you can expect something, some good news for you. So that's just an estimation. Sorry, it's not like that I can predict times, but based on my experience, I believe that yes, you have a good chances to get invited. Hi, Mr. Jishan. So the question is, I've just joined now, no problem. Is there any PR pathway for students with an accounting degree without doing any irrelevant course? See, Mr. Jishan, yes, there is a possibility. As I mentioned that recently, Tasmania had started inviting people who did not really have the experience in the field, but they were working in different field like cookery and chef, but they got the nomination because they were helping the hospitality industry coming back on track. So it really depends on whether your occupation is on the list or not. What is the how it works is basically you have to see that what's the attitude of the nominating authorities towards the applications at that time, at particular time. And if you fit in that time and if you're right there, you can apply. Like let's say I have a client who is working in Tasmania in cookery, and but the nominated occupation is an accountant. Now, when we saw that the government has started indicating that we will invite people even if you're accountant but you have an occupation in different if you're working and helping other industry to come back to track, they are actually pushing it harder and helping those candidates as well. So definitely you can always expect that wait for an occupation list for especially for accountant. I would say just wait for a month. You have waited enough already. Wait for a month or so, look at all the state nominations announcement and see which one fits and which one's easier for you, and then choose that one for your state nomination. So make it easier, because if you move to, let's say, for example, right now you move to South Australia or move to some other state and then end up making a wrong choice because somewhere else there was better chances. Like for example, a lot of nurses made a wrong choice at a time, not a wrong choice, but actually an unfortunate choice because they moved to Victoria and with an hope that they'll get a state nomination from Victoria. But Victoria, by the time they met the criteria, they closed down, and NSW opened up for regional New South Wales, in June 2020 for without any experience. So that sometimes it's just you have to be at the right time at the right place. Now the next question is Pavanpreet Kaur, Pavanpreet Singh Bra. Sorry, Pavanpreet. When Victoria will open 491 and skill criteria, as I mentioned earlier as well in this video, that they will open up somewhere in early February, I would say, to be safe, 2021. Next question is from Anya Ranga. Hi, Anya. Any chances before July 2021 for someone with 90 points for electronics engineer, including 1 year of experience in nominated occupation, currently onshore? Anya, unfortunately, I think it's gonna be very tight for 90 points with 190, because if you have 1 year of experience and only 90 points, the chances are that there's too much competition in that occupation already, and I think with 90 points, it's gonna be very competitive. But if you do have 1 year of experience, and I'm assuming that you have one more than 1 year now, so why don't you just look at the employer sponsorship option as well at the same time? Because you're asked that before July 2021, I'm assuming that your visa is about to expire somewhere there. So yes, you should look into employer sponsorship visa. And sometimes if you're short for, let's say for 482, you need 2 years of experience. But if you're short for 2 months or 3 months, there's always a way around. We generally apply for the visa because the criteria is at the time of decision. So we use that bridging visa period to meet that 2 years criteria as well. So if you speak to your employer and if they agree, please feel free to contact us and we can help you out with the state nomination program. Sorry, with the employer sponsorship program as well. The next question from Mithil. Hi, Mithil. So the question is, can we change our course from master's to trade course, and how's the chances for visa renewal? Honestly, when you go from higher education to a trade course, your chances of getting this new visa is comparatively lower. But I would suggest you can do a concurrent course as well if both the education provider are permitting it to do so. So that's a very good way to not breach your visa condition at the same time you finish another desired course that you want to finish. The next question is from Navi Kaur. Hi, Navi. How many points are required for Masters of Teaching, Secondary for 491 and 190? Is there any particular state I consider to move? Honestly, Navi, I would recommend again, wait for some more time now, because but for 491 you just need minimum 50 points. The state will give you 15 points. Most of the states are they just need the minimum points, 65 in total, including 15 points from state. So if you have your own 50 points, 15 points from state, that's 65. That's good enough. For 190 you just need 65 again, so you need 60 of your own, 5 points from the state. But some states say that, okay, we will prioritize people who have higher points, like the NSW. So in that case, yes, you need high points. But I would recommend that just wait for some time. I'm hoping that NSW will have a secondary school teacher or in the list. And if you're working in a field, again, I have a client. We've recently just advised her to see if she can contact her employer and ask whether they can, because otherwise they will have to anyways leave the country. So the company will have to fill in the position by somebody else. So they can always see and advertise the position and see if they can find a suitable replacement. If not, they can choose to sponsor you as well for this visa, for 482 visa. The next question is from Norbert Vincent. Hi Vincent. When can we expect 491 family stream visas in South Australia? As I mentioned earlier as well in this video, honestly, they haven't really announced or indicated any option for family migration at the moment, or chain migration. So I would recommend that wait until February, and you should hear something from them on the entire occupation list, what will be the criteria. But if you do have your a job in your field, and if you're already living and working in South Australia, I would recommend that you should start looking into working in a regional South Australia, basically outside Adelaide. So you can always also try for a 491 state nomination, not the family stream. Next question is from Shubham Sharma. Hi Shubham. Hi, I have done registered nurse. What visa should I apply for my PR? I would recommend, if you, I'm not sure what your location is, Shubham, but if you are in Sydney, let's say for example, or Melbourne, you can always look into other states as well. But obviously, if you're in Melbourne, you can always expect. And if you're in New South Wales, unless you are reaching 90 plus points, I would recommend that you should move to states like, let's say, for example, Canberra or Tasmania, where you can just simply work 6 months full time in your nominated occupation as a nurse and get a state nomination from that particular state. And the chances of getting the state nomination from them is comparatively higher, because we have seen that most of our clients who have moved has been invited or nominated by the states already, and because those states really need healthcare worker at the moment, so definitely they do nominate this occupation. The next question is from Harish. Excuse me, guys. Sorry if I can't answer your question. Please don't worry. Please feel free to put in your questions in the comment box. We will certainly try and answer all your questions. If we cannot answer the question during the live session, because the live session is limited for 1 hour. So if we cannot cover that in the live session, we will try to reply to your question individually by replying to your post. So please keep an eye on your post, and we will definitely get back to you, because there are more than 100. I'm really overwhelmed with the response that I'm getting on the questions, and the engagement that we are receiving from you guys is immense and it's wonderful. But honestly, there are more than 100 questions on the list. I will try to answer as many as I can, but if we can't, then we will try and reply to your posts as soon as possible. So the next question is from David Bogati. Any update on Western Australia state nomination? David, honestly, there is no announcement so far, but as I mentioned earlier as well, that most of the state will commence the state nomination program, or are likely to commence the state nomination program in early 2021. So you can be hopeful. And if you have studied in Western Australia, I would say relax. You'll probably have a good chances to get an interview. The next question is from Mani Singh. Hi, Mani. So as I mentioned earlier, how about EN in Adelaide? As I mentioned earlier from Mr. Mani, we have recently got an invitation, just I think 2 weeks ago, not the last Friday, the previous Friday, if I'm not wrong, about 10 invitations for enrolled nurses. So I would recommend that you lodge your EOI as soon as possible. Feel free to contact us if you need help with that as well. The next question is from Mohammed Matwali. How about October support engineer with 95 points, including states nomination without experience for 190? Mr. Mohammed, as I said, if it is an ICT support engineer, then At the moment, NSW has just indicated that they will be inviting occupations which are on the priority list by the department. But if they do choose to, to broaden their occupation list, yes, then we have seen in the past that people with ICT support engineer skills assessment have received an invitation. Neeraj Turan, hi, is it good to study community service diploma in Western Australia? Hi, Neeraj. It really depends on your intention and what's your criteria, what sort of courses you like, and there are a lot of factors that affects our recommendation. But yes, definitely, we can always study the course that you like to study or you want to choose to study. But I would recommend, yes, you should contact our branch in Perth, in Western Australia, and they can help you understand based on what objective you are trying to achieve. What's whether you want just a qualification or you want to see, how this qualification can result in employment. There are a lot of factors that we take into consideration before our education counselors will advise you on the course. So you can always contact us and ask those questions. And generally, the consultation for admissions or student visa is for free, even including 485. The only consultation we charge for consultations only for a permanent visas and an employer sponsorship visa and global talent on all those visas. Student visa services, related services are consultations are for free, so you can always contact our office for a free consultation for student visa and admissions. The next question is from Harish. When can we expect grant from NSW? Visa lodged in June 2020, ICT visa analyst. So, Mr. Harish, the grants are from the department. So if you have already got an invitation and you lodged a visa application, then the application is with the Department of Home Affairs, not with the NSW anymore. So that means that now we have to wait for the Department of Home Affairs to finalize your application. And because there is a backlog from previous years as well, and as well as current year, they have reduced the number of allocations for 189 visa. So you will expect certain delays in 189 visa or even 190. The next question is from Milan. Hello, above. I've submitted my EOI in 491 family stream, 95 points as an engineering technologist. Any chance for invitation? Honestly, the last invitation that we have seen was somewhere in, if I'm not wrong, in June or July for engineering occupations for family sponsorship as well. But since then, there has not been any invitation. But I believe, if I'm not wrong from my memory, that we had invitation in the same field with the same points that you have. It's just you have to look at your date of effect though. But we had seen the people getting an invitation with this. So if and as the department has indicated that they will try and the certain engineering occupations will be on the priority. So definitely chances are that he can, but he can be hopeful, but obviously not be 100% sure on these ones, honestly. But because foreign family sponsorship generally gets a lower allocation as well, so it's very hard to tell you whether you get an invite or not. But yes, your profile is good. The next question is from Daniel DeMello. Hi, Daniel. What about 85 plus 5 for Victoria 263111? Been 3 years onshore. Honestly, I'll have to check what is 263111. I'm assuming that's somewhere in engineering, in IT occupation. 263111 is network. Yeah, computer network and systems engineer. So I believe that you should try and work on increasing your points, or look at the alternative options like Canberra, because Canberra has your occupation open on the list, and you can always try and consider moving to such states as well. But for Victoria specifically, if you have a job in your field, I would say yes, 70% chances, honestly, because very hard to tell you, because the occupation list is not out, and they have indicated so far that they will look at the broader occupation list, which is the entire occupation list from the Department of Home Affairs. The next question is from Neeraj Turan. I have done accounting and got my 85 points. My TR is finishing soon. Is it good option to move to Perth and study diploma in community service? Neeraj, honestly, I wouldn't suggest taking the community service if you have already utilized your 485 visa. But it really depends on your intentions. And again, as I said, Regarding the study, I would recommend that you contact the nearest office. We can advise you on the course, and based on your criteria, what is your, what is your indication, or what is your objective to study these courses, obviously. And certain people want to meet the state nomination criteria. That's why you want to study. Then the, the objective would be different. If you want to study because you want to gain the experience in this field, or if you really like this field, then the recommendation would be in a different way. So I would recommend that you contact the nearest office, and we do provide, as I said, we do provide free consultation for an admissions and student visa services. So there is no obligation for you to take our services if you don't choose to, but you should take an advice from our education counselors on this. Uh, Sunny Kumar, hi Sunny. Further to my question, I have 95 points in 190 developer programmer. I'm registered with you guys. Can I come and meet you in Parramatta or Sydney? Yes, for sure, Sunny. You can always call the office and book your appointment. But 95 points, yes, your chances are great because developer programmer is on the priority list already. And if you have a 95 points, that means, at the moment, with an experience, if you have an experience for a 95 points and a developer programmer, let's see what's the number of EOIs there. But as it's in the priority list, the chances I would be quite hopeful. So there are 300 plus EOIs in there, which is not too much competition, but not really an easy competition as well. But yes, you still have comparatively better chances. Like if you had less than those points, you might have to work on the state nomination program. Now, the next question is from Mr. Mohammed Irtiza. Still no invite? Not really, and I understand your frustration, but the government. I understand that from your end, you're right. From government's end, they're right. So it's very hard to say, but I understand that the migration policies are not favoring you at the moment. But believe me, it's just a bad phase. It will pass, and then when the good phase comes in, you will have good chances to get invited. The next question is from Hussein Charolia. So hi, when is Western Australia State Nomination going to open? What are the chances for chemical engineer with 85 points? If you have studied there, your chances are bright. And as I mentioned, that they will definitely, probably they should start the state nomination program in early 2021. So the next question is from Sardar Asim Sahid. Hi, Mr. Sardar. When should we expect an SOL for each RDA of NSW? As I'm living in Sydney with 80 points for 491, I can get a job offer from regional news sources, but what will happen if my occupation civil engineer is not on the RDS list? So RDS, they have just announced it today that they will be announcing the occupation list in early February 2021. So, and considering the occupation that you have, I would say yes, bright chances that your occupation should be on the list because it was on the list when they announced the criteria in June as well, or previously last time whenever the occupation was announced, occupation list was announced. So I'm quite hopeful that your occupation should be on the list. But each RDA will have a regional their own list. So let's say Wollongong might have your occupation list on the list, but your occupation on the list, but let's say Newcastle might not have. So it really depends on where you can find a job. The next question is from Sheldon. Hi, Sheldon. So the question is 190 NSW nurse with 90 points. What's the chances? Now, Sheldon, 90 points is not bad, but is it including the state's 5 points? Then I would say yes, you should start working on increasing the points. But because nursing is on the priority list, and if the department only invites, even department and NSW state nomination authority only invites, let's say, a priority occupation list, which is those 18 occupation lists, then your chances would probably be higher. But it really depends on how they will act, because invitation rounds and the results of the invitation, let's say we have seen people getting an invitation with 85 points in 491 family sponsorship stream because the government was inviting certain occupations only at that time, so they got an invitation. So it really depends on how the invitation is conducted. So if they limit to certain occupation, then the chances for those occupations goes up. And because nursing is in the priority list right now, yes, chances can be higher. The next question is from Mina. Mina, hi Mina. So for how about primary school teacher? I assume that the primary school teacher is in the short-term list, if I'm not wrong. So if it is a primary school teacher, which is in this, let me check. Primary school teacher is on a short-term list. So you will have to look into the state nomination programs because your occupation is not on the medium and long-term scale list. So you cannot access like visas like 189, 186 direct into stream. So, you will probably will need to look at the regional occupation list and try for the occupation list that way. Um, Thank you very much, guys, for putting up so many questions. I know I've not even gone through halfway, but believe me, our team will definitely try and answer all these questions as soon as possible over this weekend, as well as by the next week, early next week. So please bear with us. We will try and get back to you with your answers on your individual comments, with replying to your individual comments as well. But thank you very much for joining us today. And I would like to reinstate that the intention of this video is to just create awareness that there are alternative options for you guys as well. So, and do not panic or do not really be disappointed, because yes, it's a bad phase, as I mentioned earlier, and it will pass. Always, there is always a good time after. So there is always a morning after night, right? So definitely there will be a morning. So there will be a bright face, and the sun will rise again. So I would recommend that do not be disappointed. There will be chances for you to get an invite. As I said, most of the cases that I come across, there is always a solution for it. It's just that how you look at it and whether you are determined to work on those solutions. So as long as you are dedicated towards working on those solutions, 100% your chances are brighter. And as I mentioned that, that you should not be disappointed. Just be hopeful, be positive. The things will get better. And with the news today, because at least two states have indicated that they will start their nomination program in early 2021. So that's sort of a good news that the things are going back to track now. As the COVID-19 pandemic gets over, I think the situations will start getting better. So thank you very much for joining today. And as I mentioned, we will try and answer this question, but the intention of this video is just to create awareness and help people understand, and to make sure that you are aware of upcoming changes, as well as you do not do something wrong. Even if you're intending to do your application on your own, we understand that a lot of people have financial strengths and they cannot afford the agent fees. But if you do choose to go ahead with your application on your own, please feel free to look at our online sessions, as well as ask your questions here, and we will definitely try and answer your questions with the utmost information and integrity. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish every one of you for who is watching us a happy weekend and happy Friday as well. Hope you have drinks and enjoy your night and enjoy your weekend as well. Thank you very much for joining us today.